Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Limits Movie Podcast. Last time we looked at Shawshank Redemption with my good pal Hunter here,
Hey,
and today we are going to look at another movie. This one is a horror movie, I guess. Would you consider it a horror movie?
I think it technically is. It's also like one of the most nominated horror movies of all
I've
time.
heard I've heard some people say it's more of a thriller than a horror movie, and I get the argument for that. But
I never really viewed it as much of a horror movie actually until I did the research for this, but I think it is like the most highly rated horror movie. At least it was when it came out of all time.
yeah, it's kind of a horror movie, kind of a thriller. Point is, Silence of the Lambs.
Oh wait, this is a clap.
Okay, so what's your history with Silence of the Lambs?
I watched it and I researched it.
You got some pretty interesting histories
I
here.
know it was pretty insane. It was one of my first. There's some Shawshank where like when I started watching movies kind of more seriously, they were like two of the first movies of all time I watched. It was actually not a bad start at all. It's pretty cool.
I guess it makes sense why they're early on the podcast.
I think Silence was actually one of the first, like maybe the first one I watched.
Like the first one you put on like Letterboxd and stuff. Because don't you usually go to IMDb? Like you go to the top 250 on IMDb and you'll just look through and find something really high up and you're like, I have never seen this one.
It's a cool looking movie, like City of God. I want to watch City of God.
Guys, this guy is in a cuckoo's nest? What the hell?
We should do one on that. Actually, that's a good movie.
That is a very good movie. But not the one we're talking about here. So we should probably get back to this one.
No, I watched Silence so early though that I didn't know where it was on IMDb. I don't think I just said it was an iconic movie. I didn't use IMDb to find that one. I knew it was a really iconic movie, so I wanted to see what it was about.
Yeah, because I actually watched it a bit later than I did like Shawshank, and I'd even seen a lot of horror movies before I saw this one. Like I know earlier on that year I saw Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, like the first one of those.
Mm.
So I was already knew a little bit about the horror genre and stuff. And the thing that struck me about this one was the title, because it's such a unique title. I think it sounds cool,
It does stand out. I'll give you that.
and it makes sense if you watch the movie. But
I'd watch a lot of. I watch a lot of Ghost Bumps. Wait, is that what it's called?
Ghost Bumps.
God damn it! Whatever. It doesn't matter. That one ghost show by L.L. Stein, I think it was. I watched. So I actually had watched some horror before this and read some.
Yeah. So, and then what are your general thoughts on Time to the Lambs?
Good movie. I have some pretty insane thoughts. Really good casting actually. I think the casting ended up working pretty perfectly for this. I think Jodie Foster is pretty good. I think Anthony Hopkins. I think it's Anthony Hopkins Jr. technically. I think he was really good in this, and it's kind of interesting because if this film hadn't succeeded, Anthony Hopkins would have left acting in the American. He would have gone to British stages. Because he had been acting for like a couple of decades at this point and had not been working out very well for him. But suddenly this movie kind of blew up, and he won an Oscar for best acting. I think it was something like that, and he got an award for. He got the record because he had the second shortest performance of all time that had won an award for best leading actor. I think it was. I'm supposed to got leading actor actually. I think it was leading actor. He had the second shortest performance of all time that had gotten that.
Yeah, he kind of is a supporting character because Hannibal isn't in the movie that much actually. If you
Mm-hmm.
watch it,
I think it was 24 minutes 51 seconds that he was in it for, which is
and most of it's at like the beginning. He has like a little bit in the middle when they transport him to the place, and then he obviously does the whole thing at the like before the end where
he goes crazy at the end. He also had full interactions with Jodie Foster's character Clarice.
Clarice.
I'm sorry, that's Clarice Sterling.
And I will say that probably my favorite part of the movie
Mm.
is that part at the beginning where she goes in and she sees him for the first time.
Yeah,
And that is something I can say. This movie absolutely loves like really close up shots of people's head if you actually look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it loves having those really close shots of people's head where all you can see is just like their face.
Yeah, when
It
Hannibal
does that move. It does that a lot in this movie. I realized that when I rewatched it.
it actually is a little bit to digest the, like for example, when Hannibal is speaking, it often does like a straight camera angle of his face, kind of like right looking at his face. They did that because they wanted to seem like he was all knowing, like he knew a lot about what he was talking about. They also wanted to put him in a jail cell originally, but they changed it to glass instead because they wanted to be more intimate. The jail felt more like dividing kind of. But with Cleese, it's like the camera angle is more to the side, kind of less straight.
Yeah.
And they did that because they wanted it to seem like she's more of a main character. She was the one that they wanted the audience to connect to. So it's kind of interesting, actually.
Yeah, I hope you don't connect to Hannibal.
What are you talking about?
But and it's also interesting because when she walks into that place originally, like you see all these terrible people who are like really loud and obnoxious, and then you get to Hannibal, who's the one who's like really calm
Yeah,
because he's more of a thoughtful
it's definitely a lot more.
psychopath.
It's a lot more fascinating than the rest of them. Was
Yeah.
he a psychopath? Yeah, I think it was a psychopath. And then there's also a remark that he makes on her accent partway through the interview, and that was actually improvisation. That was not part of the original script, and it genuinely scared the actor when he did that.
Yeah, I've heard that Jodie Foster was like, "No, I don't want to deal with Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah,
He's scary."
she avoided him, but she was actually scared of him. And that accent thing that he mentioned was actually an improvisation. They never scripted that, and generally that was her genuine reaction to that. Like the thing that you see, that was a genuine reaction when she heard that.
Yeah, obviously Hannibal is the like part that of the movie that everyone knows.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting because he's not even the main villain, let alone the main character.
Oh yeah,
Buffalo Bill.
yeah, Buffalo Bill, who's played by, well, isn't his real name James Gumb?
I don't know
Played by
exactly.
Ted Levine. Ted Levine had a really good. Wait, I think it is. Yeah, it is. His real name is James Gumb. Buffalo Bill is probably better known, played by Ted Levine. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. Apparently, the actor for Ted Levine. Oh, wait, sorry, the actor for Buffalo
Actor for
Bill,
Ted Levine.
who was Ted Levine, he did a really good performance. Like when they were trying to figure out who was going to act for who, and apparently part of it was because he was so high on caffeine from coffee, he had no idea what to do. And part of the interesting part of this movie is how much outside help they used in order to understand how things worked. For example, the FBI helped a lot with this, actually, understanding. Obviously, like Clarice is a FBI agent, so
Yeah.
they worked a lot with the FBI, and part of the reason was because the FBI wanted to get more women in there. And the main actor is a female FBI agent, so that's why they were so willing to work with them, which is interesting. And also, I think the FBI, they have like a training institute at the beginning. I think it is something like that. It starts off the training montage.
Yeah, pretty early on, and there's stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's the first time that place had ever been allowed to be used for a movie thing. That's the first time they allowed for that. So that's kind of cool. And then, like, I remember Clarice cried in the car at the beginning. Remember that was actually they did that because a FBI agent who was hoping Jodie Foster to get into character and understand how FBI agents worked. That was actually an actual FBI agent's idea because sometimes it gets pretty busy there,
Yeah.
overwhelming. So they did that sometimes apparently. That's kind of cool. And then I know Anthony Hopkins. I know he did a lot of research on serial killers and psychopaths beforehand. He also went to some actual court hearings of serial killers or psychopaths or I guess crazy murderous people. So he went to some actual court hearings. And I know Ted Devine also did stuff like that. He also went to like a trans bar because his character. He did some interviews at trans bars, I know, because his character was kind of weird about that stuff in the
Yeah,
movie.
his character is interesting.
He had a unique character. But it's kind of funny though because Ted Devine, so the house that you see him in the movie, that house is in the neighborhood that Ted Devine actually grew up in, and it's a house right next to his girlfriend's house, the girlfriend he had in high school, which is kind of funny.
And then obviously there's the famous like he put the girl in the well and then
Yeah.
dropped down put the lotion in the basket. That's what it was. And then the dog and everything. And that stuff is really interesting. The whole thing about Hannibal being used to also uncover who Buffalo Bill was. I think that's why Hannibal's in the movie, obviously. And even though Hannibal is always like stealing everything he's in, Buffalo Bill is still an interesting, weird villain.
I think they're
that
both
makes
good.
the movie. Yeah, I still think Buffalo Bill is a great villain for the movie.
That's a really good idea to put like one criminal as helping another criminal as an actual criminal.
And like I said, because Hannibal Lecter, he's not in the movie that much. Most of the movie he's in is probably just the part at the end where he's like escaping and he's doing all this crazy stuff. Like he pretended to be one of the dead guys who could get into the car.
Oh, that was weird. Like, didn't he like plaster the face on his face?
Yeah, and it was like really disturbing.
Yeah, and also like he hung that guy upside down in the weird jail cell. He really went crazy. I think it was a pretty interesting interpretation of that. Also probably realistic as well. That was very interesting.
Absolutely, he does a very good job being threatening. And obviously, the last line he says is like, I'm gonna eat my friend here. I've got a friend who I need to eat." Because there's also the ending is kind of open and it's setting up. Probably I've never seen them. I think it's setting up the Hannibal movies that came out afterwards, like this Hannibal and Red Dragon. I think they're called.
Yeah, Red Dragon was 2002. I remember they had used footage from Silence because wait, no, it might have been they might have used footage from Shawshank actually because the prison that Shawshank took place in shut down shortly afterwards. So Red Dragon might have used footage from that actually, which is interesting.
Hmm.
And that's something or something else. But yeah, I remember a lot of the sequels don't have great ratings, but one of them actually is a show about Hannibal that came out afterwards. I had 8.5 out of 10. So on IMDb anyway.
I've heard of the show. I don't know much about it.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but apparently they actually did do a good job of one of them at least.
Yeah, and then there was a movie that came up before Silence of the Lambs that you never heard about. It was called Manhunter by Michael Mann, and apparently that's like a don't quote me on this wrong because I've never seen it either. But it's like a prequel to Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, apparently it's about an FBI profiler, but I don't know much about
I don't know if it has to do with, but yeah. Point is, I guess watch that if you really like Silence of the Lambs. I probably should see that stuff sometime soon because I love Silence of the Lambs. I think it's a great movie. So yeah, it's thrilling from start to finish. It's a very thrilling movie. It's just a really good psychological thriller. I think it's interesting that it did win the Oscar because it's very rare for a movie like that to win the Oscar.
Especially a horror movie.
It's usually something really grounded, like I don't know, but it's usually something like really grounded and serious. And Silence of the Lambs is just a scary horror movie that was done super well. Mm-hmm. I don't have that much to say other than that. It's a great movie. Absolutely one that I recommend.
I for sure recommend it as well. Had good acting. I know Jodie Foster she kind of stepped down from acting a little bit afterwards. Not completely, but
yeah, like she was in Taxi Driver in the 70s when she was like a child star, and then she ended up being in Silence of the Lambs.
I know she joined True Detective, which is a show way afterwards, later on. So she did do some acting afterwards, but I think she did kind of tone it down a little bit afterwards.
I don't know much about her acting, so she clearly wasn't anything like super, super big, I don't think, after this.
True Detective had an 8.9 out of 10. It was critically acclaimed.
I'm not the show person here.
Well, I think that was like 5 or 6. She joined like the 5th or 6th season, but yeah, she did a really good job in the movie. If
I look it up, she was in Panic Room. Okay, that's interesting. That's a Fincher movie.
Oh, Fincher movie.
So yeah, Silence of the Lambs. I love it. It's great. 9 out of 10.
I agree. Oh, I forgot to say my rating for Shawshank. For Shawshank, it would be a 10 out of 10.
You did say that because you made a joke in that one about how you found it relatable or something.
Yeah. So I think they're both relatable movies. Anyway, 9 out of 10. Moving on.
I'd like you to explain this one.
I think this is a good ending for the podcast. You know, I think it's a pretty confident 9 out of 10. Very, very good movie.
Yeah, I love it. It's great. It's one of the best movies of its kind. Thank you guys for watching.
It's R-rated.
Well, it's about a cannibal. Pretty hard for that not to be R-rated.
It's about a Hannibal. Thank you. Hannibal, not a cannibal.
A Hannibal.
I guess he is a cannibal. Actually, never mind.
This is a great ending to the podcast.